The Tattling Toad, presented by the Herpetological Society of Singapore as part of the Singapore Heritage Festival, a digital edition.
You find yourself standing at Pasir Ris Park Car Park C. It's about 7 p.m. and it's getting dark. Just rained in the afternoon, so the air is cool but humid. There's a medium-sized restroom here with a water cooler and a couple of vending machines. The fluorescent lights inside are on, and you can already see the geckos chasing after small moths attracted to the light. The families have stopped throwing frisbees around on the lawn. The inline skating lesson on the path has come to an end. The street lamps flicker on, and a lull falls on Pasir Ris Park. The silence is short-lived. Soon, the forest bursts into life. The crickets in the lawn fill the air with their high-pitched chirps. A singular frog begins to call. Not wanting to miss out, several others join in and add to the chorus. The soundscape is hard to ignore at this point. You peek out from under the shelter and see small bats flitting through the night sky as the last remnants of daylight leave the landscape. It's time to go herping. And a good day to our listeners. Welcome and thank you for joining us here at The Tattling Toad, brought to you by the Herpetological Society of Singapore. This episode is produced in collaboration with the National Heritage Board for the Singapore Heritage Festival. My name is Sankar.
Hi, and I'm Ing Tong, and welcome to the first episode of our podcast. Today, we will be your hosts and nature guides, leading you through one of the most interesting parks in Singapore.
That's right. This is our first time doing a podcast, and you might have noticed that Ing Tong and I have kind of different sound qualities. We're both observing social distancing rules during the circuit breaker period, and we're recording this from our own homes.
Yeah, please don't report us. We are actually staying at home and following the rules. Anyway, if you've never heard of us, let me explain who we are and what we're here to do. So herpetology is actually the study of reptiles and amphibians. Since our founding in 2015, the Herpetological Society of Singapore has been raising awareness about these very misunderstood and often hated creatures. Mostly we do this by conducting free guided walks, talks and events. And now we are starting a podcast.
That's right. So let's not dilly-dally for too long. We're really excited to be visiting Pasir Ris Park today. So let's dive in.
Alright, so now it's in the evening and it's actually the perfect time to find some really cool herbs. Let's head over to the mangroves to see if we can find anything. And remember to bring a torchlight, because if you do not have one, you will not see anything but fireflies.
Okay, so we find ourselves standing inside mangroves right now. And the mangroves are a really interesting ecosystem. If we turn the clock back about 100 years or so, mangroves like these used to dominate the entire shoreline of Singapore. In fact, they actually covered about 13% of our land area. Today, most of these shores have been reclaimed, and mangroves are only covering about 0.5% of Singapore's land. So Pasir Ris mangroves are some of the last remnants of this habitat in this part of Singapore. Despite the forest's very small size, it actually plays home to an absolutely insane range of animals. Some of these animals really can't be found anywhere else in Singapore.
Oh, Sankar, do you hear that?
Oh,
Yeah, I think it's coming from the drain.
oh, yeah, fantastic. You've probably have heard this call before, especially after rain around your houses in urban estates. This is the call of the banded bullfrog. And these are probably one of the most widespread frogs you can see in Singapore.
These frogs are one of my favorite in Singapore, and they are actually non-native and were most likely brought in by the agricultural trade about 150 years ago, and now they can be found island-wide. I absolutely love these little guys. And one of the reasons why they're so cute is actually when they are being confronted by a predator, they inhale a lot of air into their body, which causes them to puff up, and it makes them a lot harder to be consumed by predators. On top of that, they actually also secrete very disgusting chemicals on their skin, which will actually deter predators from even approaching them.
Yeah, I bet you know what it tastes like.
Okay, let's keep moving, Sankar. Okay, so now we are actually at the back mangroves of Pasir Ris Park. Do you notice those strange looking mounds scattered across the mangroves?
Yeah, I see them. There's one there about waist height. Looks like it's made of mud.
Hmm.
There's openings here and there. They kind of look like tiny little volcanoes. Yeah. What are these, Ingtong? Are they like termite mounds?
Oh no, these are not termite mounds. They are actually mud lobster mounds. So mud lobsters are a very elusive species of lobster that live in mangroves. They love to dig into mud and look for food. When they do this, they actually end up creating all these crazy mounds throughout the mangroves. And all this digging actually recycles nutrients from deep underground, making it accessible to the animals on the surface. And these mounds also serve as homes for animals like crabs, fishes, and snakes.
Wow, that's kind of cool. It almost reminds me of like an HDB flat where you have all these different animals and like crabs, spiders, and snakes all just like living together and being neighbors with each other inside this one HDB flat.
Yeah, exactly. There are even swimming pools inside these mounds, so it makes it more like a condominium than a HDB flat. The holes are connected deep underground, so during low tide, when water gets trapped in them, this actually allows aquatic animals like fishes, crabs, and our mud skippers to live in them.
Oh wow, where's the lobster then?
Okay, so the thing is, I have some bad news for you.
Yeah.
Like I said before, these guys are highly elusive and very shy, and they are usually not seen outside of their burrows. In fact, in the past 5 years, I've only ever seen one, and the second I put some light on it, it went back into its burrow
Oh
immediately.
man,
But we know that they are still in the mangroves because of all of the mounds here.
that's such a shame.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Oh, hey, wait, look what's lying right there above us on the branch.
Oh, nice! That's actually a Malayan water monitor lizard.
Yeah, that's right. These are probably some of the most misunderstood creatures in Singapore.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of people in Singapore who end up seeing them think they are Komodo dragons or even crocodiles sometimes.
Do you remember in 2016, some folks said that they saw a crocodile near the sports hub at Marina Reservoir, and they actually had to close down the entire reservoir.
Yeah. Do you remember what happened with that?
So they actually closed off the reservoir for the entire weekend. And they consulted with experts from PUB, AVA, NUS, Acres, and Singapore Zoo. And all these experts came to the conclusion that it was actually a Malayan water monitor the entire time.
Yeah, it's amazing that they actually closed the entire reservoir for such a harmless animal.
Yeah, exactly. The entire reservoir. And I think that's why it's important for people in Singapore to really know what our native animals look like.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, okay, to be fair to those people, they are quite big. In fact, they are the second heaviest lizard in the entire world. Of course, after the Komodo dragon. I mean, they are both actually very closely related. However, Komodo dragons can only be found in very few islands in Indonesia. And I mean, if you want to be pedantic about it, I suppose you can find them in zoos as well. So if you're in Singapore, unless you're looking at the Komodo dragon in the zoo, what you're looking at is most likely a Malayan water monitor or a clouded monitor lizard.
Yeah, they're most commonly found in the waterways. And they're really good climbers, as you can see. Sometimes you see them just chilling on branches like this.
Oh yeah, well, we're on the topic on chilling on branches. Just take a look on that tree over there. What's that?
So many tree climbing crabs. So, as their name suggests, these crabs climb trees. Right now, they're all avoiding the tide, which is rising. And with the rising tide, a lot of fish tend to swim into these estuaries in search of food. And the crabs are often what's on the menu for the fish. So to stay safe, these crabs actually climb trees and stay out of the water. But the problem is there's so many of these crabs that sometimes they kind of crowd around on the same spot on the tree, and you just see crabs getting like shoved back into the water.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's every crab for itself. And actually, Sankar, did you know that these are also eaten by people? So back when kampongs were still around, Teochew people would actually preserve them in vinegar and eat them whole. And this is why they are also known as vinegar crabs. People do still do this in Southeast Asia in rural communities near the mangroves, and that's actually one of the many ways the mangroves benefit humans.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah, Sankar, aren't you vegetarian?
The audience doesn't need to know that, Ling Tong. Let's just go with it, okay?
Okay, fine. Okay, so we are now at the main section of the mangroves. Let's start looking around for some homolopsid snakes.
So, Ling Tong, what is a homolopsid?
Okay, so homolopsids are commonly known as mud snakes. They are actually a group of aquatic snakes that can be found in both freshwater and saltwater habitats. They are unique as far as snakes go because they give birth to live young instead of laying eggs. We have 7 species of these guys in Singapore, and 4 of them can be found right here in Pasir Ris. Oh,
Oh,
Sangha, take a look over there. There's actually one
nice.
below us.
That is your dog-faced water snake, which is the most common mud snake in Pasir Ris. As you can see, they actually grow over a meter in length, and they mostly feed on fish and crustaceans. While they're hunting in these small streams, what they do is they use their tails to anchor themselves to the mangrove roots and hunt. I don't really get why they're called dog-faced water snakes. They don't really look like dogs. Like their eyes protrude from their heads, and they've got a pretty broad head. But I really don't know what they were thinking when they gave this snake its name.
Yeah, scientists and their weird naming systems. I read this very interesting research paper on the hunting strategies of this snake, and they aren't very picky about what they eat and actually have been seen catching poisonous mangrove pufferfish. And after catching a fish, they often drag them up onto dry land so the fish cannot just escape.
And I just spotted 2 more in this small area. They're really common. But the one over there looks slightly different.
Oh, yeah.
It's dark gray and has a white belly. Oh, Ying Tong, I think it's a crab-eating water snake.
Nice. Huh. Crab eating. But how? They look so much smaller than the crabs.
Yeah, actually, that's really cool. So, that was a question that scientists were wondering about for quite some time. Turns out this snake is a proper lean, mean crab-eating machine. Snake actually pins these crabs into the mud
Okay.
and slowly pulls off their legs one by one, eating them, and then finally devouring the body. And it doesn't end there. The crab-eating water snake has evolved these massive teeth that just help them handle and crush the crab's hard exoskeleton. They also have like these extra strong stomach linings that protect their insides from getting lacerated by these sharp crab parts.
Mm.
One more thing. So you know how crabs live in salt water? They're isoosmotic to the environment. So that means they have the same salt content as the seawater that they live in. These crab-eating water snakes have these absolutely spectacular salt glands that remove the salt from their bodies.
Yeah.
Basically, this snake is a crab's worst nightmare.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And in fact, there is another species of snake here that specializes in eating crabs as well. It's called the Gerard's water snake, and it's not very commonly seen, but it doesn't look all that stunning. It's mostly brown with an olive-colored belly. It actually eats the same species of crab as the crab-eating water snake, but with a bit more sophisticated taste. It only goes for soft-shelled crabs. This snake is able to sniff out the pheromones released by the crab as they molt. And as we all know, when crabs molt, they come out of their shell very soft. So it actually goes after it when it's in molt. It does this because it doesn't really have the same arsenal of adaptations as the crab-eating water snake, but it gets around it with a very, very clever behavior. As a bonus, although they both feed on the same species of crabs, they don't actually need to compete with each other for food, since they feed on them at a different stage of their life. These both are some of the only snakes in the world that break up their food into smaller pieces before consuming them.
The cool thing is, a lot of the research that we're talking about today was done in Pasir Ris Mangroves itself. This is a really small forest, but it's made this huge impact on our overall understanding of this group of snakes.
Oh, Sankar, careful! Don't lean on the railings, man. There are a lot of geckos all over that thing.
Hey, you're right. What species are these? Oh, okay, so these are the spiny-tailed geckos. As their name suggests, their tails have these tiny little spines just running down the side. And they're probably the easiest reptile to see in Singapore. In fact, you probably have them inside your house.
Yeah, I can actually just see one while we're actually recording this episode on the wall.
These guys are the ones that call at night and run around your house, and many people think they're pests. I don't think so, because they help to eat insects like mosquitoes. And honestly, they won't really bother you if you leave them alone.
Yeah, so let's actually just leave them be and we'll continue the walk.
Oh, there's a mangrove pit viper, and it's resting on the roots of the mangrove tree. You can see its red eyes and its dark purplish brown body. It's got like these keeled scales that have like this ridge right down the center of each scale. And it gives it a very sharp angular appearance. It almost reminds me of a dragon.
Yeah, that's a beautiful snake. Do you know why it's called a pit viper?
So these snakes actually have these heat sensing pit organs on both sides of their head. How do I explain this? Do you remember the movie Predator?
Yeah, the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger, right?
That's the one. So just like Predator in those movies, pit vipers have heat vision. So remember those organs I mentioned?
Mm-hmm.
They help them to sense the heat of their warm-blooded prey, even in the dark.
Oh wow, that is really cool.
Yeah. You actually see them quite often at Pasir Ris Park. They are highly venomous and they can be quite hard to spot, especially because of their dark coloration. But if you do see them, just keep a safe distance and you'll be fine.
Yeah, that's a beautiful snake. It's really wild how many different species of snakes can actually be found right in our own backyard. So we have mentioned 3 of the 4 mud snakes that can be found here: the dog-faced water snake, crab-eating water snake, and Gerard's water snake. The last species is known as the Cantor's water snake, and it is by far the rarest species of mud snake in Pasir Ris. Very little is known about this species because it spends a lot of the time in mud lobster mounds. Nevertheless, Pasir Ris Mangroves is actually one of the best places in the region for those hoping to see this species. It's quite a weird looking snake with a very long, slender body. It has a dark purplish color and yellowish cream banding on its body. Not a lot is known about this very elusive species, although we do know that they feed predominantly on snapping shrimps.
So that pretty much wraps up the homalopsid mud snakes. But Intong,
Hmm.
do you see underneath the boardwalk? There's a snake there that we haven't talked about yet today. It's the banded fowl snake. It's kind of moving slowly between all the different holes on the sides of the stream.
Yeah,
Do you see it?
I do. Very nice.
This is a very special species of snake that can be found in Pasir Ris as well. And unlike the other snakes that we've talked about so far, it is almost entirely aquatic. It's got a flattened tail as well, and this helps it to swim in the water. So why is it called a file snake? It's actually got these really, really cool scales that are very small and granular, and the scales cover the entire body, even the belly, which is really special for a snake. So these very small granular scales feel very rough like a nail file, and that's why the snake is called file snake. So because it's got such a rough body, it allows it to kind of grip slippery fish and eat them, you know? So these are not very easy to see, so it's really cool that we got to see one today.
Sanket, you? Oh, that's a buffy fish owl.
Oh, our first nocturnal bird. These are really cool animals with lots of adaptations for hunting at night. So for one thing, owls have specialized feathers that help them to fly silently and sneak up on prey. So you'll find that unlike most birds, owls have a flat disc-like face.
Yeah.
So this allows them to channel sound waves towards their ears and enhance their sense of hearing. Any slight rustling in the grass or the leaf litter by an animal, the owl will immediately be able to hear it, and it's pretty much game over for that animal.
So this owl really likes to hunt fishes, as its name suggests. And right now it's waiting patiently over the mangroves for its next meal to appear. They do eat other animals though, banded bullfrogs and even snakes.
I think it's really cool that we can find these massive birds of prey like owls in Singapore. Ing Tong, why don't we walk over to the jetty and just have a sit down and watch the dog-faced water snakes for a while?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Alright, we have walked through the entire mangrove, and we've come out on the other end. And we're actually finding ourselves in a different habitat right now. This is the forest edge. It's called the forest edge because it is the edge of the forest. But also, it's a different environment. It's drier, it's hotter, it's more exposed to the elements. And because of all that, you see a completely different group of animals living here as well.
Okay, is that a duck? I didn't expect to be hearing them at night.
No, Tong, that's not a duck. That's a four-line tree frog. Let's go have a look.
Okay, yeah, let's go.
Okay, here it is. Tong, come here. You actually see that this one has very nice dark stripes running down its back. And that's where it gets its name, four-lined tree frog. But not all these individuals have stripes. Some of them are just golden colored, no markings on them. And they're very adaptable, so you can find them in forest edges like this. Sometimes you see them in shallow pools. And you can even find them in urban areas, so like you can see them in like gardens and parks quite regularly.
Oh, Sanka, I think someone left is it some wire or some string on that palm over there?
You're joking, right, Eng Tong? That's a painted bronze back.
Is it? Oh, yeah, it is. Oh, my goodness. I can't believe I didn't see it. Yeah, so what we just saw is actually a painted bronzeback, and these are really cool snakes. They are one of the most common species of snake in Singapore. And bronzebacks generally tend to be very shy and will quickly flee if they feel threatened in any way. But luckily, they are diurnal, meaning they are only active in the day, and this one is sleeping. So we can take a good look at it, but I think we shouldn't spend too much time with it.
Oh my god, it's so cute. It's got such a big eye. So I actually see a little lump on its belly over there. I think he's eaten a gecko or a small frog or something, so it's in a food coma. Oh, I think we woke him up a little bit.
Yeah, I think we can just, leave it alone and not disturb it too much.
Yeah, you're right. Let's go. Intong,
Yeah? What's up?
come here. Oriental
Okay,
whip snake.
okay. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Wow, today's a really good day for herping, huh? This is one of the most common snake species in Singapore, and it's called the Oriental whip snake. So it's called a whip snake because it's very long and thin, like a whip. And you can usually see them around parklands and edge forests. They have very long snout, and they also have these very unique narrowed eyes with these keyhole-shaped pupils. They constantly look like they're judging you. Yeah.
Oh, here we go. We have another frog, and it's just sitting there in front of me, and it's not moving. Is it still alive?
Yeah, Ingdong, it's alive. It's the Asian toad. They're really widespread around Singapore.
Yeah, and as you can probably see, they are not very deterred by human presence, as it's just sitting there, just looking at us. And there is actually a reason for this. If you take a close look at its higher back, you can see two large lumps on either side of it. Those are called parotoid glands. And when the toad is threatened, they will secrete a white milky substance from those glands, which is toxic to whatever that will eat it.
They're not the fastest frogs in the world, right? I mean, this one's just like slowly hopping forward, and it's kind of slow. It's not a great jumper either.
Yeah, in fact, most frogs they jump forward, but these guys actually jump upwards, which make them not move very far.
Yeah, I love Asian toads. All right, Ingtong, let's go over to the frog
Yep,
pond.
on our way. And our last stop for today is the frog pond in the middle of Pasir Ris Park. Usually at night, you can hear a chorus of frog calls, so let's head over there and check it out.
Now, it's quite hard to hear, but there are actually 3 distinct calls echoing across this pond right now. And they belong to 3 chorus frog species that can be found in Pasir Ris Park. They usually call in large numbers after the rains.
Yeah, and that's why they're called chorus frogs. These frogs are very small, usually the size of your thumbnail. In fact, they can comfortably sit on your thumbnail. although for such a small size, they are very vocal and can be heard calling from quite a distance away.
So how do we identify these? Let's start with the call that's the easiest to distinguish. Let's isolate the call. This is the painted chorus frog. It has a rapid quacking call, as you can hear, and you can identify it by the beautiful golden yellow pattern on its back. It's not hard to see why it's called a painted chorus frog.
There are two other calls here, although it's hard to distinguish them. Let's isolate them and have a listen. This is a dark-sided chorus frog. It has a light brownish back and black coloration on both of its sides, so it's aptly named because of its dark sides. Let's compare that to this call. That was the East Asian ornate chorus frog. They do sound very similar, right? However, they do look different. The ornate chorus frog comes in three varieties: pale brown, reddish, and dark brown in color. Regardless of the color form, though, these guys can actually be identified by the streaks down their back in sort of a triangular form. And it actually reminds me of kueh lapis.
Kueh lapis. Yeah, so this species is not native to Singapore, and the first record of it was in NTU back in 2014.
Mhm.
Since then, it's been seen island-wide, and there are no studies of it being done on its impact on native fauna just yet. Looks like we're back where we started, Ing Tong. We've done a full loop of Pasir Ris Park.
Yeah, this area, Pasir Ris Mangroves, are definitely one of the easiest places to go hopping. Although the habitat here is small, it is still decent enough that there's actually a lot of reptile and amphibian diversity. This is one of the part of the parks which most people tend to overlook. Reptiles and amphibians usually get a bad rap, but to be honest, they're one of the coolest animals you can find.
That's right. And these mangroves are an increasingly rare habitat. Like I said before, they only cover about 0.5% of Singapore's land surface.
Mm.
And even though they're so small, they have so much animal diversity. It's not a habitat that Singapore can afford to lose. So come check it out when you can. Speak up for these spaces and protect what we have left. Tell your friends and families why it's important to preserve these spaces and bring them out to see these amazing creatures.
If you have any questions concerning herpetology or herbs in general, feel free to reach out to us on Facebook at Herpetological Society of Singapore or on Instagram and Twitter at HerpSocSG. That's HERPSOCSG. As always, remember to be safe. These are wild animals, and the best way to appreciate them is from a distance. This is Sanka and Ing Tong from the Herpetological Society of Singapore, and thank you for listening to our podcast. So until next time,
Happy herping!